Our guest today achieved what many women can only dream of achieving and is working on doing more with her life. She was an ambassador, a minister, and was the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. And now she's the president of the Arab Women's Organization. She is Ambassador Mervat Al-Talawi. About her upbringing in South Egypt and her childhood, she said,
"It was a happy childhood. The environment at the time was very pleasant in the farm, and the nature was very, because the villages at the time in the 40s were completely dependent on themselves, not buying from the big cities, no, producing their own needs. So it was like a self-sufficient community, and this allowed me to be among the people, the inhabitants. I would help the rural women. If somebody wants to have a medical help for the eyes or medicine or injection, I would move around and help them as young as 14 years old. So it was a very interactive community in the villages, because the big head or the big family in the place would have the responsibility of taking care of the rest of the people. And everybody would help the other in case of a need or an accident or a serious medical situation. Things have changed later, and nowadays the difference between the village of the 40s and today, that the village is stopped to be producer of food and self-sustained and buying everything from outside. As to me personally, in this community, I was saying that it was like a small social affair ministry, where everybody would come to the house and seek help or assistance and so on. As to me personally, I admire this interaction with people, but at the same time I had a problem with my family, namely that my father was reluctant to let me continue my studies. I was in a French school. I would play piano and I would paint, but when time came to join the university, he stopped me. So I started to study at home. Every year I would take a new secondary school certificate, which at the time was توجيهية, because we know that the university would not take except the most recent certificate. So I got 3 توجيهية. Finally, during the 3rd year, he allowed me to join the university, because he became convinced that I am really serious about this, and I'm refusing marriage. And then I joined the American University at the time.
Young Mervat Al-Talawi went to the American University in Cairo to study political science and economics, and we asked her about her college life and her relationship with her colleagues.
It was very normal, playing volleyball, basketball, On the theater in the university, boys and girls would practice together. I mean, it was a very close community. We never thought of the difference between boys and girls like today, that this is a man and this is a woman, this is a girl and this is a boy. This idea never crossed our mind. We were like family, like very close friend. We deal normally. We go together in a trip for traveling or meeting other team from other universities. I was the captain of the team in of basketball and volleyball. So this increased your ability to join others, to create new ideas, to be a doer, because sports, and this is, I'm always saying to my relatives, please let your children, boys or girls, to join any sport, because it would help the person to manage anything in front of him, to move his body, to move his mind, and this is very useful when you are trained in a group, especially in a group kind of play like the basket or volleyball. You have to know how to cooperate, to work as a team, because it's a kind of a sport that you have to work together, not individually. So this have helped me in my work later. My early years, in the French school, I painted and I played piano. And in addition to reading, of course, I like to read history books and to learn from history and compare it with what happened in the past and today. It's amazing to find the same thing repeated, and still we as human beings, or as a politician, or we don't learn from history.
About Mervat Talawi's choice to pursue ambassadorship and how it was restricted to men at that time, she said,
as I said, I liked history in particular, and I was leaning toward political science. So when I joined political science, I said, well, it was the time of Nasser, and if they do not allow me to join the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, what would I do with my bachelor degree? So I took a double major, business administration, in order to secure a job, because I wanted to have my own earning. My father was a wealthy man, yes. I could take from him whatever I need, but I believed that I should have my own income. That's why I insisted on, when I finish university, I would work to have a job. I don't like women to always stand in front of her husband, father, brother, and ask for money. It's the first basic issue of independence, to have your own income, to depend on yourself, even if your family is wealthy or capable, but it has to be from you. So this is what I pursued.
Ambassador Mirvat al-Talawi graduated and spent her youth in the 60s, a time when Gamal Abdel Nasser was ruling Egypt, and she spoke to us about that period of her life.
I am a fan of Nasser. Although I was kicked out of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by Nasser, and I rejoined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs by him also, when he discovered that his decision was wrong. The charge against me was that I belonged to a feudalist family. So it was not only me, but a number of members of the family lost their job during this era. And I found Nasser, I am a fan of him because of he was serious, he was very dignified, and he wanted to see Egypt as independent, strong, central for the rest of the Arab countries. So this would give you, later when I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and represented Egypt in many of the UN meetings, you feel, without even instruction from the capital, you feel that you have a base to stand on. There are things that you refuse automatically without waiting for instruction. We were very proud of being Egyptian under Nasser, although I know that there has been many mistakes in his policy, especially when he meant well, but the result went wrong. He meant well by dividing the land and give it to the farmer. But at the same time, the consequence of such a policy was we lost our income from the agricultural sector. You know, of course, that up till 1954, after 2 years from the revolution, we were, our pound was 1 English pound and 4 shillings. So our currency was better than the sterling. And England was indebted to us because of our cotton and other agricultural products. So he wanted to help the poor peasants, but at the farmer, but at the same time we lost the agricultural policy, and now we are dependent on importing all our food from outside. This is really one big mistake.
Ambassador Mirvat al-Talawi is married to a phenomenal man who she says has supported her every step of the way. And here she tells us how they first met.
I met my husband in the street. He was a military officer, and my car, I was driving my car, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And somebody behind me, another car behind me, making a big noise that I should move. So I went out of the car saying, "Don't you see it is not working?" So this gentleman came out. They were two gentlemen, and they tried to help me, and discovered, because the car was with my brother, I didn't know that it didn't have gas. So they, both of them, they went and they brought the gas, and the car started moving, and this is how we got to know each other. My husband, although he is a military person, but very cultured and very supportive and believer in equality. He's very legally minded, and he does not like any violation of justice. So he's pro-woman in his mentality. His mother was an author, writer. She also was a very modern thinking person for her age and her time. So he stand behind me a lot. He encouraged me in my career, and sometimes he's much more positive than me in continuing whatever. Sometimes you get fed up of all this meeting and all of this traveling, but he's always encouraging me to continue. It's an obligation on you, you have to continue your career, and so on.
Talawi received her bachelor degree from the AUC in Political Science and Business Administration and went to Geneva to carry on with her study plans, only to come back to Egypt to receive her first job.
It's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the only job I got. I entered the exam and I passed the written and the oral, and then I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and many people are telling me, you are by education, political science and business administration. What is the relation between this and the fact that you are pro-women and spending your time in women? This is not your career. But you see, when I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I found for the second time, the discrimination against women. The first was my father that prevented me from continuing my study. The second time was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Although we have joined and passed the exam, but the minister at the time, Minister of Foreign Affairs, he refused to allow us to travel and to work in the embassies abroad. So we stayed 10 years in Cairo, in the ministry, in the headquarters here, not to be allowed to travel like our male colleague who would stay 1 year in Cairo and then 4 outside, and so on and so forth. When you grow older and it is time for promotion, they will tell you, sorry, you didn't have the external experience, so we cannot promote you. So anyway, according to my grade, I was working or placed in the office of the minister. And when he took this decision of not allowing us to travel, I said to him, Your Excellency, you do not believe in equality and in the work of women, so there is no point that I serve in your office. You would allow me to go to another department. So in the discussion, I told him, I will continue to work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I believe I do have more years than you in the Foreign Office. And this became true. After long 10 years, he left, and the next minister agreed that we travel, and then we opened the door, and our colleagues, our male colleagues, said, you will never be head of a mission outside at all. But in '87, President Mubarak assigned me as the first career ambassador in Austria and in the United Nations Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna. So I opened the door for the rest of my colleagues, women diplomats, to be appointed. And now they are around 22% of the population of the diplomat, and many of them are ambassador here and there, or consul general, and so on.
Ambassador Mervat Talawi told us about the image of Egypt in foreign countries at the time she was working abroad.
Image of Egypt in the 60s, 70s, up to the 80s were a major position among the 77. We had a strong position among the 77, the non-aligned countries. We had a voice that everybody else in the UN would listen to. If they want the opinion of the African continent, they would check with Egypt. If they wanted the other Arab countries to sign a treaty, so they would work with Egypt to sign first, so the other would follow. So we were a key country in many groups, whether Arabic, Islamic, or African. And we had a strong relation with other active diplomats in other continents, like in Brazil or Argentina, or in Asia and Europe. So we were looked at as a key country in the region.
When she spoke about the image of the Egyptian women at that time, Ambassador Mervat Talawi's opinion was quite shocking.
It was better than... Yeah. Of course, we have the many problems. I mean, it was not heaven at the time, but we were not seen as the West are seeing us. Once you say that you are a Muslim person, the image is different, the treatment is different. And even the younger generation of Muslim people and women in Egypt are more conservative than us when we were at their age. So I believe the Islamic or Islamist, so-called Islamist, and their interpretation and their fatwa and the way they analyze the Quran led wrong interpretation, of course, because there have been so many good things in the Quran and great rights for women in the Quran, but we expressed it wrongly, analyzed it wrongly, and those people who pretend to be the spokesperson of Islam really made a big harm to our religion.
Talawi was assigned Ambassador of Egypt in Japan from the year 1993 till 1997, and she spoke to us about that experience.
My experience in Japan was excellent. I spent 4 productive, useful years. I learned a lot from Japan. The Japanese are Oriental people. They are people of old tradition. And you could find similarities between us and them, although the appearance look completely different. But they are very close to our tradition in the sense that they are family people. They respect their family, they respect the old age. They are not outspoken like in Europe or Western countries. They keep their tradition. They are keen on keeping their own tradition. Yes, the country is modernized. Technology is everywhere. But from the social angle, they keep their tradition. So sometimes I felt as if I am in Egypt when but definitely I learned a lot of wisdom from the Japanese, the way they love their work and the feeling of belonging to the company where they work. It is as if it is their own property. They are attached to their company, they are attached to their work. I will tell you an example. For instance, I had 3 Japanese secretaries. They would remain in the office till 8 o'clock, although they are supposed to leave at 5. Sometimes I get down from my residence to the office in the evening to read some work. And then, to my surprise, I found the girls sitting there. What are you doing here? Why you didn't leave? Madam Ambassador, we have work to do, and so on. So they were telling the younger diplomat that I have in the embassy, please, Mr. Yasser, would you close the doors so Madam Ambassador will not see that you are still here, so she would kick us out. So they want to sit and continue work while the owner of the place are telling them you should go home. So indeed, this is something excellent, and this is, they have passed with big experience when they were bombarded by nuclear bomb, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the impact of this terrible weapon. Yet they have tolerance in their heart. They forget and they forgive. They are patient, they are not loud, and they are modest. When a Japanese person starts lecturing, he starts with sorry, although he didn't say anything to be sorry for. So they are modest and gentle. I enjoyed my stay there. The thing that I'm proud of during my stay in Japan, it was the building of the high dam, the building of the bridge over the Suez Canal that we call the Peace Bridge. And I made this name because at the time we could not have money as loan from Japan because they have given up $4 billion US as a result of our war with against Iraq to liberate Kuwait. So they said we cannot go to the parliament and say we are going to give loans again to Egypt, and last week they have just dropped $4 billion. So loans, no way. Then the donation grant, peace grant, because Egypt is the one country in the Middle East that is ensuring peace and make peace continue. So this is how we got the name Kubri Salam. And that was it. It is the highest bridge in the world, 70 meters high from the face of from the sea level, 70 meters. In order for the car to get up 70 meters, you have to have a runway of 13 kilometers. So maybe people would hear that this is a bridge like any other bridge. No, it is not like any other bridge. To have a height of 70 meters, it means that you need a runway, and also the two pillars that is holding the bridge from the middle is
Ambassador Mevat Talawi has worked with the United Nations many times. About her first experience with the UN, she said,
I am a multilateral diplomat. It means that most of my years, even before being ambassador, I was either in Geneva or in New York or Vienna, multilateral diplomacy. So I spent so many years with the United Nations in different capacities. But I have to tell you that I have a history with the United Nations. First of all, when I was still young, I submitted after the war of '67 a request to the UN Women Committee that women during war need a special protection because of our '67 experience. And this idea was developed 6 years later to become the first General Assembly declaration passed in '74 to protection of women and children in time of armed conflict. So it was Egypt's initiative to think of women at the time of armed conflict, which is the key issue these days as a result of what is happening in Syria and Iraq. The other thing, for instance, in Geneva, Lebanon was trying to create a regional commission in Beirut as the rest of the other regional places, I mean 5 geographical places related to the United Nations, each has a regional commission on economic and social issues. Like in Latin America, they have one, in Southeast Asia, they have one, in Africa, in Europe, except the Middle East and the Arab countries. So Charles Malik, the the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lebanon at the time, submitted a draft resolution to upgrade a simple office, UN office in Beirut, to become a regional commission like the rest of the world. And they wanted to hear the voice of Egypt. And I was representing Egypt at the ECOSOC in Geneva at the time. And the request came from the Soviet Union. And they said, is this a Lebanese or an Arab resolution? So I understood the meaning, and I took the microphone and said, well, this is an Arab resolution that was agreed upon by all the Arab, and the purpose of the resolution is to increase the economic and social activities, because we have at least 5 countries considered in the region as least developed. So it is justifiable that we be treated equally like the other region. The American delegation answered me by saying, well, we do not agree because we are not establishing ethnic groups within the United Nations. Why Israel would not join this group? So for this reason, the American delegation is submitting a draft resolution to send the draft by Lebanon to the International Court of Justice to seek a legal opinion. So I had to answer saying there is nothing legal in the issue that would need the International Court of Justice. Of course, this is a maneuver, a delaying tactic, not to establish the organization. So if you, Mr. Ambassador, if you insist on your draft resolution, I have an amendment on your draft. And this amendment would read, the International Court of Justice would express its opinion about the geographical border of Israel. the whole thing stopped, and they had to go to Washington to ask for Kissinger's opinion. Would we proceed with our draft resolution to send this Lebanese draft to the International Court of Justice with the amendment of Egypt, which asks to define the border of Israel, so the draft is American. And this is politically suicidal for America, that they will let Israel be discussed within the International Court of Justice. Or should we stop the whole thing? Then after an hour, we resumed again the meeting, and the ambassador at the time, the head of the meeting was ambassador from Australia, and he asked the Egyptian delegation, do you still insist on your amendment? I said, as long as the American draft is on the table, I'm insisting. He asked the American, and they said, we withdraw our draft. And this is how the ESCWA organization was established, thanks to the Egyptian delegation. We got the vote, and we got the organization without Israel. In Vienna, when I was ambassador, and at the same time I was the governor of Egypt in the board of governance of the Atomic Energy Agency for 4 years. And there I found that the atomic energy has a treaty between each of the continent on technical assistance in the area of nuclear technology, except Africa. So I asked why. The answer by the Atomic Energy Agency Secretariat came surprisingly for me. They said, well, the African countries are not ready for nuclear technology. They are underdeveloped. So I answered, but this is this is a discriminatory attitude, and it reminds us of the colonization. And instead of helping the country who are less developed to improve their development by new technology such as nuclear technology, we are preventing it, preventing technology to help the developing country. It helps in salinization of water, of killing insects, and in medical services, in food preservation, and so many things. So I went to all the ambassadors of the African continent in Vienna at the time, and we drafted the treaty of technical cooperation between the agency and the African continent in the Egyptian embassy, and I went to all the ambassadors. They signed, and then I gave it to Hans Blakes, the head of the Atomic Energy Agency at the time, and it passed. And this is how now every year we have a training for the African countries in Egypt, one time in Egypt, another time in Nigeria, in Ethiopia, and so on laser, on X-rays, and all of this thing. Maher Abaza, the former Minister of Electricity, he used to call me the mother of Afra. Afra was the abbreviation of this treaty. So this is also one thing that I did with the United Nations.
This is how Ambassador Mervat Al-Talawi evaluated her journey with the United Nations. And about her second time working with the UN, Al-Talawi told us,
After I finished my term as Minister of Insurance and Social Affairs, Kofi Annan, as Secretary General, asked President Mubarak that I should be working with Kofi Annan as Under Secretary, the first Arab woman to be Under Secretary. Under Secretary is a level of Prime Minister in the protocol comparison. So I took this post and I headed the ESCO. Amazingly, after so many years, I became the head of the ESCO region. The UN was and still is very useful for the member states. At least we get together as leaders of the world once a year. We discuss new innovative ideas to promote our life. We take a precautionary measure if there is a worldwide disease. The UN would bring it to our attention. Environment, nobody would hear what is the meaning of environment in the 70s. It was the United Nations that brought this to the attention, and now the danger of the climate change that is warning the countries to take precautionary measures as of now in case we have the very severe impact of the climate change. So from all the angles you can see there are benefits from having a worldwide organization such as that would look at the whole problem and the whole planet and give advice and warning and monitor the whole situation. Of course, it has its also mishaps or mistakes, and this is acceptable. I mean, if we benefit 70 or 80% from it, fine. It's better than just have a loose world. You see, when there was two superpowers, the Soviet Union and the United States, it was in the benefit of the United States. It made a balance. After the fall of the Soviet Union, of course, the United States took advantage and imposed on the United Nations many of its wishes, which weakened the organization.
Ambassador Mervat Al-Talawi was the president of the National Women's Council, and she spoke to us about the foundation of this council and what it has done for the Egyptian women.
First of all, I was member of the Committee of 50 that drafted the Constitution, and for the first time we have given women in this Constitution so many rights. For the first time since 1923, this more than 1920 articles do refer to women's rights. Old age, senior citizen, handicap, poorer women, everybody.
Talawi is currently the president of the Arab Women Organization, so we asked her how the state of war in this region has affected the average Arab woman.
The Arab Women Organization here, which is part of the Arab League, I'm now in charge of it, went to for 10 days in a tour in Lebanon, Jordan and Iraq to see the women refugees in this country as a result of the war in Syria and Iraq. It is really a human tragedy never seen since the Second World War. And a lot of problems facing these people. As you know, the 80% of the inhabitant of any refugee camp are women and children. 80% women and children. So this problem did not receive enough attention for the last 5 years. Only when the flow of refugees started to go to Europe, then the media started to focus on it. But there is no enough financial support. There is no enough political will to stop the act of violence and the act of terror or the military act, so the people can return home and the flow of refugees would stop. Every day the refugees number is increasing. So also the international humanitarian law was not implemented in a
Talawi occupied the position of Minister of Insurance and Social Affairs from 1997 to 1999. And on these grounds we asked her how she viewed the Egyptian society from that position.
The Ministry of Insurance and Social Affairs is a very important ministry. Although the public opinion and the media look at it as one of those ministries, they call it service ministries, not important in their view, although this is completely wrong. Because I counted the number of services provided by the Ministry of Social Affairs. They are 103 services. It is very essential to ensure social justice. It is very essential to any individual, poor or rich or old or young. It is the area where could protect the country from a revolution. The revolutions do come because of the negligence of social justice and the lack of educating people and building on the human being, not only building bridges or high rise or material things, but building in the human being, their education, their health, their well-being. This is very important. I think that this ministry should be given enough attention. and should be considered a priority minister in the country to solve many of our problems.